It would be good, I love mango in anything. Can you do mango? Like, is it too much sugar in your?
On what?
Salad, that would be great.
No, I mean, are you on a?
Yeah, try to limit sugar.
Me too.
Grain.
But I know that some fruits have more sugars than
Oh, yeah.
others, so I didn't know if mango was one of those that is not worth. To me, it's always worth it. I could eat.
They're
Five
just a pain
mangoes.
to,
You know
But-
what? They are, but Dole has them fresh in a jar. They're a little more money, but if you don't wanna be cutting up a mango, they're a couple dollars extra, but it's a whole
And they're
mango.
yummy.
So yummy. And they have a short shelf life because they're really fresh.
and Kelly.
So, let me just, give you a little heads up, and then I'd love to hear questions and just talk. So, this group was a mixed group, so the
Yeah.
challenge was, to try and figure out how to, make it worth everybody's while. And so, I knew from the beginning I was putting Emerson in a very challenging text. I hoped to scaffold it by having the boys start the reading and give her an entree to the book, and then I would work with her as her read. My plan was to have the boys finish their read relatively quickly and move them to a level appropriate text. So that, they should, in my plan, would have moved to a second text. That is a wonderful text, I think you'll have it in your folders, so you might want to take it, Larry the Singing Chicken, I thought would appeal to both boys as well, it's a cute
Yeah,
story.
yeah.
And I actually think, somebody working with them should probably do it, because if they thought, and they both did, that the bear's tail was kind of funny,
Yeah.
they're gonna think this one's hysterical, so it offers a
Sarah,
nice.
did you give me a red folder?
Did I give you a folder?
Yeah, did I get a red folder? I didn't.
Oh, there.
Was
Yeah.
this hers? Cause you gave me a yellow one. Do you want me to?
No, I think,
No, I think this is yours.
there was 2, 4,
I'll just copy.
6.
I'll
Yeah.
copy.
Oh, here, I've got the text, I'll give you my copy of the text.
That- the rest
Who was
is the
in here
same as
earlier?
yesterday.
Maggie was here.
Maggie, I think, got the, I didn't realize she was coming, so she took.
Yeah, so she was an extra.
I just want the text.
So that was the plan, and, then I would have had, Emerson work on those, long vowel silent E words a bit more. And then the plan was to, when she had a bit of practice there, have her do some writing with those words, so that you reinforce that thought, while I continued to work with these guys. So that was the elegant plan. But as always happens when you actually start working with kids, doesn't work out quite that way. So a couple of my observations, I know it's sometimes hard to hear when we're working in these settings, were, both boys were in instructional, those texts were instructional for them, but they're not fluent, so it took them longer to read them than my calculation for them.
Right.
And that would just be something you want to factor in the next time. And of course, it didn't help that they weren't doing a reread. So in the life of a lesson plan like this, that first section should have been a reread for them. So they would have been rereading a text they had already read for fluency, to get the juices working, and then the new book would have been a genuinely new book. So once kids get up to level J, it's a little of a challenge because the texts are longer. So there's not, in my world, there's nothing wrong with breaking a book into 2 segments. So if you needed to get halfway through Larry and the Singing Chicken and then pick it up the next day, you can actually do your reread on the front half of Larry and then continue with new text in the second half. And there's real merit to that for kids just at this cusp, because they really kind of benefit from both of those. So that was my thinking. If we could talk about Emerson, I know that Lynn would love to do that. She's a distinctly different kid than the other two at this stage in her reading development. And the boys are both actually working it pretty well. You know, they're being quite strategic. Are not always successful, but that's much less important than that they're working to be using the strategies that they have. So I could say more, but probably more interesting for you if you comments, challenges, questions.
I loved how you have the strips of paper,
Oh, yeah.
and just, you know, like she was having a hard time with the ow. OU. I mean, because we haven't taught everything yet,
And,
so
and
some.
that's part of my challenge. I don't know,
Right.
with her, I intervened more than I would normally, 'cause I don't know what
Right.
she's supposed to know.
Right. Mhm.
You know,
Right.
once I knew that, well, then you make them work it, but
You
then,
would give them wait time.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, that was something that we didn't
Yeah.
expect them to know, so I like how you had that and instantly just, okay, get it.
the
Give it to them and
key,
move
the
on.
key here is, yes, and the delicate dance is how long do they work it? What do you give just out of
Right.
hand? And where can you give prompts that are as unobtrusive as possible, still making them do some work for it? And the reason to do the lighter touch, that this combo says ow, and she was successful, she was able to figure it out, which I wasn't, with a blend in the beginning, I wasn't sure she could make it, is, you know, Donna Scanlon's work, one of the things that is so pivotal in my mind about what she's done, and that's made a big difference in how I work with kids, is her insight that the harder kids work at a word, the more fully it gets analyzed. So as soon as I would never expect on a second read for Emerson to know caught or cried. I gave them to her outright. She hasn't looked at those long enough to even remember them. So you make note, you say, they're gonna have to go onto a sight word list for her. We're gonna have to really work, well, for caught, for cried, I know she doesn't know a regular verb ending, so, you know, I'm okay with that. I wouldn't care if she didn't even remember that one the next time, except it may become a sight word if she reads enough text with that in it, but, so the thought and caught are both, for her, they're on the sight word list, she can begin to notice those GHT things, at the end. But otherwise, yeah, my plan is to give as little information as possible, and then have them fully analyze it as much as possible, so.
One thing that I liked, it's such a simple thing, and maybe other people do it, but just having your strategy list upright and posted, and you modeling, putting the little markers on it. So you did a quick little model of that, and then it was like, okay, now you have yours, and you have your little jewels.
Yeah.
It just really gave a focus to what we're doing as we're reading. We're looking to use these strategies.
And of course, for me, I use that size a lot for just that small group purpose, but for me, it had a couple of purposes. One was to, give a focus for the oral reading, which normally I wouldn't do a lot of with 3 kids in a group, you know, you wouldn't normally, but I don't know these kids. I have to hear them before I can really go much further with a lesson, so I gotta hear them. By doing that, it also allows us to focus on the strategy use. And when you do have kids listening to other kids, which you will sometimes, just out of practical need, the function then changes from you're gonna yell out the word, get the word, to can we solve this puzzle? And really reinforces that. So, and then in this particular case, I was hoping to, as I say, you know, give a little boost to Emerson before she took her turn by having the boys start the text. So, you know,
It was a scaffold.
it was a scaffold
For her, yeah.
But otherwise, by this level, no, you don't wanna be doing too much of that, for sure.
What I also loved is how you had a self-checking activity for the kids, so that you could be listening to just one student, and they could be kind of independent, because they had the self-checking piece.
Yes, yeah, and I make a fair amount of use of those kinds of things.
Yeah.
There's two, for me, it's my 2 go-tos are self-checking ones, and ones where you can't be wrong, which is almost always writing. You know, you can write what you can write, and, you know, you're gonna, as
Right.
long as you model that, they know what they're supposed to do. We didn't, we didn't talk at all about the insides of their folders, because I realized we wouldn't have time, but, the inside of the grade 1 folder has a word wall, so it's alphabet and place for them to write them, and that is used for them for writing. So as they enter words that they know, or current words they'll need to reference, they'll use that in their writing. For the second grade kids, I like having,
Oh, I like
so,
those.
I
And this is growing, so I've given you an example of one that was in action when we did it. But you see that there are other spots, so this folder doesn't start looking like this. You start introducing so as you introduce families or you know they have them, then they get put in the folder, so, you can copy them then like this, or you can just literally have samples that you paste in for their folders. But this becomes a tool then for them to use, once you've trained them to use it. In some classrooms, people have a small group size of these. It's posted right in the group, so as kids are reading, they can look up at that wall. They don't have to look at this, but either or both are pretty helpful for this stage of development.
We
I
have
made
the
the
folders,
folders
but we
there,
don't have the
but
inside,
you could
which is
do,
nice.
we could
Right.
Oh, and
easily
yeah, but,
add that to
we
the
can
folder.
just-
And I told Sarah, I believe I have templates for almost everything I'm sharing with you. So if you want a
The
little
reveal
disc,
things.
Those little cards.
Yeah.
Pictures, that was awesome. Do you have
Those are a
templates-
big- those
do you
are
have
a crowd
templates for
pleaser.
those?
Yeah, I have-
Those are awesome. I didn't know if that was
So you
something
could
that
just
was-
No,
make
I
your
just,
own.
I just made them. I create the blank template and then, depending on what I wanna do with it, no. And I've already found all the pictures, so there's no sense somebody else doing it. I'll be
Oh,
happy to
yeah.
share.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Perfect.
I like the one time that you had one of the boys figuring out a word and you asked the other kids, well, what strategy is he using?
Yeah.
I thought, I haven't done that. I haven't asked the other kids to listen and figure it out. And
Yeah, that, it's really powerful actually, as they begin to get more accustomed to being expected to do that. And more, it increases their self-awareness, that's what you're really
Right.
after. If they can see somebody else trying something, oh, I could try that too.
Right,
And they're
right.
invested then.
Yeah, and they're
And
invested.
they're thinking.
Yeah.
Otherwise, sometimes they, even at the lower levels, they start drifting off.
Yes, exactly.
And having seen the first grade yesterday and today, you guys can see the video too if you're interested from yesterday. But there was a lot of verbalizing of the strategies on the kids' part, as opposed to you just, I tend to confirm, I like the way you confirming the strategy they use, but across both lessons, there's a lot of the kids verbalizing either what they're doing or what the other kids are doing, so.
And the really good news is, both in the first grade yesterday and this one today, the kids are getting quite comfortable at using the strategies, and they're using a pretty full array of them. So that, kudos to all of you.
Yeah.
That means, good
Both
teaching's going on.
classes,
Yeah,
there was evidence that they were really familiar with.
yeah, yeah, it wasn't just some.
Yeah.
I'm doing it, but you've always done it.
Wow.
And he does an excellent job.
But it wouldn't work if they didn't have good tier one.
you set the foundation.
Yes, that's
So thank you.
exactly.
Well,
Those
actually,
kids that are
Sarah
helping
brought
me.
Erica and I to Killington 2 years ago. That's how the whole ball got started. And then I reread the book that summer, and I went, there might be something here with it.
I was like a new.
That was a shaky
brought that whole
conference.
group in.
So I have a question
Yes.
on here. It
Oh.
says, include no more than 3 students in a group.
Yeah. So this,
I'm like,
So what, that was a comment, no, I'm just joking.
that little observation guide, you can see in the note, was created by teachers who were in a workshop with me. We ran a summer, actually, that was fun. We ran a summer reading boot camp for kids. So the teachers were working with me to develop their strategies and skills in ISA, and the kids came in to get tutored. So we ran a 2-week long reading clinic, and it was so much fun. But in learning how to do it, they were concerned that their administrators might not understand what the heck they were doing when they walked in and saw them not helping a kid, waiting instead of
Oh, right.
And so it was a sort of a way for them to inform their administrators. It was